Okay, here are the main pieces for the kit: the back, the sides, the top, the tail block, and the head block. The first thing we want to do is glue the sides to the tail block and to the head block. The parts that aren't shown here are the lining strips. We'll see those when we get to that part. We start with the tail block, and it has sloped ends. Make sure the longer end is to the bottom outside, and we're going to apply glue to the ends of the block, and then we're going to place the sides even with the bottom and clamp those on. I'm going to use rubber bands to do that, like this. I'm going to apply the glue and put the sides on. See if I can do this. Apply some glue on there. Get it on nice and evenly. And if you're a woodworker, this is a no-brainer process here. Attach that. Just going to set that down there on the table. Take the other end and place it against there and give it a squeeze. And that probably could work just to leave it like that, but I'm going to use some rubber bands and clamp around there just to give it a little extra help. After you get the rubber bands on, make sure it doesn't slide on you. Make sure it's still lined up. I'm going to put 2 rubber bands on. These are rubber bands from asparagus bunches. They seem to be about the right size there. Okay, and then I'm going to go up to the other end and do the same thing with the head block. Apply glue here. Make sure it's spread on there evenly. Good coat. Not too much that it oozes out all over creation, but and I'll put that in here. Make sure on the head block that the shorter side is out, so that the sides slope along the shape of the dulcimer there. Okay, and we'll let those dry, and we'll be back. Next, we're going to be gluing in the lining strips of these narrow, skinny pieces of wood, and they get glued in along the edge here to help give us a little more gluing area when we glue the back and the top on. Now, to clamp these on while the glue dries, there are several things you can use. You can use clothespins, or if you have little clamps. I really like these little binder clips that you get from the store to clamp uh, papers together, or if you have bigger clamps or bigger clamps, it doesn't matter. Whatever you can use, whatever works to clamp it and hold it till the glue dries. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started on this process. All we're going to do is put glue on the strip, stick it on there, and clamp it in place. Here we go. Just going to run a little bead of glue down here. And I'll smear that on there. And if it's a little thin at some places, I'll add a little more. Okay, got that glue on there. I'm going to stick it on here, and I want to make sure as best I can that I get it as even with the edge as I can. Clamp it in place. I'm going to just run some clamps down the edge here and kind of spaced out, and then I'll fill in after I get it kind of in place here. Okay. Trying to make sure it's even with the edge. If anything, you want the lining just a little proud of the edge, and then you can sand that off after the glue dries. And the other end here. Got that, and I'll fill in. Add some clothespins here. You can run clothespins the whole way down here if you have a lot of clothespins. I've got a whole ton of them. But whatever clamps you have that work. Hopefully you have ones that have jaws that won't mar the wood. That's ideal. Got these little colorful spring clamps, dirt cheap somewhere. Just fill it all in there. You're going to do this side and then do the other side the same way. The other edge over here. And once that's all done, we will just sand the edges real quickly to make sure they're even, and we'll glue the back on. Okay, so here it is, glued up. We have the lining strips glued in here, and we just have to level those out. And one way you can level them out is with sandpaper. If you have a block and sandpaper, you can sand them a little bit, make sure the strip and the edge, the side, are even. That's one way to do it. I would recommend getting maybe a full-size sheet of sandpaper and wrapping around a long board and going over it sideways in this manner. If you have a small block plane, you may want to use that to, if you have a spot that's a little bit higher perhaps, and you need to take that down. as I have here. Didn't quite get that lined up very well. And so that will do a little quicker work than the sandpaper. Okay. Or if you happen to have, which you probably don't, but I do, a sanding board, just a board with a piece of sandpaper attached to it, and you can use that and sand that back and forth, and that helps to get that leveled out. Okay, now we have the edges, the sides, and the end block, and everything all leveled even. Now we're going to glue the back on. And what we'll do is, I always put the back on first and the top on last. And it really probably doesn't matter which you do first. The way I always do it. So I'm going to run a bead of glue around the edge here, place the back on, and I'm going to set something heavy on top. I usually set my toolbox on, but it's not here right now, so I'll find something else. And a lot of times what I'll do, I'll also put a kind of an intermediary piece of wood in there, just because the bottom of my toolbox is filthy, rusty. So I have over here a board that I use to put in there, and I'll put that on after I get the bead of glue around and put the back in place. Okay? Glue all the way around. And once again on the head block here, we'll make sure we get sufficient amount to spread around. And down the other side. You don't want to get too much on the sides, the edges here, because you don't want to gush out over onto the sides, especially if you're going to be putting any kind of finish on there. That will cause a problem. Now, one thing I use when I'm spreading glue on larger surfaces is this silicone basting brush. Rockler Woodworking sells these handy dandy little silicone glue brushes for a lot of money. This was $1 on sale at Ace Hardware, and I won't do it on the edge there, but it's just a silicone basting brush for the kitchen, and I cut the ends off here to about a 1/2 inch long, and just like the one from Rockler, you can, when the glue dries, you just peel the glue off, or I'll just maybe set it in a little container of water to dissolve off. Either way. Okay, there we go. I'll set this around here and place the back on. Make sure you have the good side out. Now it may hang out just a tad bit. Mine hangs out just a little bit on the side, but that can always be trimmed off after everything's dried, either by sanding or with the plane, or if you have a flush trim router bit, you can always use that. That's the handiest thing. I'll put my protection board on there and find something heavy to put on. In this case, my saw blade box. So, put that on there, hold that down, and wait for the glue to dry. Okay, all right, here we are. Glue dries, you can take your weight off there, and there's your part of your body there, almost done. 2 more steps. All we're going to do is repeat what we did with the bottom. We're going to glue in our lining strips, sand them flush, and then we will glue on in the same manner our top. And then it's a matter of removing the fretboard from the cardboard dulcimer and gluing it onto the body of your wooden dulcimer body here, and finish it as you like. I frequently will use tongue oil. Nice easy wipe on finish. Right here I use Formby's low gloss tongue oil that I use on my student model dulcimers, and I will use on this one also. But if you want to go fancy, if you want to stain it, exercise your creativity. And one more thing, before you put your glue the top on the back of it, don't forget to sign and date. Mark of all the luthiers, we sign and date our creations. And the date. And then if you have a little something that you, little motto or something that you go by, you can add that too. Okay, here we go. All ready to glue on once the lining strips are dried and sanded. And enjoy your new wooden-bodied dulcimer.